Hello and welcome to On the Frontline, the Grocer's video series looking at how businesses supplying food and drink to the UK are tackling the pandemic. I'm Daniel Wolfson, I'm the Grocer's food and drink editor, and today I'm talking to Morten Toft Beck, who is the founder of one of the UK's fastest growing plant-based brands, Meatless Farm. Meatless Farm's been incredibly busy since coronavirus swept the nation, launching new products, changing recipes, and implementing technological innovation in production and across its supply chain. Morten, thanks for joining us this week. Can you tell me, has the whole category seen a rise in interest since lockdown and since coronavirus?
Before the lockdown and before coronavirus became something that everyone talked about, we were talking a lot about the environment and the effects of, say, animal agriculture or industrialized animal agriculture, I should say, because obviously there are a lot of sustainable animal farming out there that can continue and doesn't have a negative effect. But this whole idea of industrial animal agriculture having a big effect on CO2, that was a lot of the discussion that drove the early days in plant-based, whereas now you see a shift over to personal health. People are talking about eating clean, about the coronavirus deriving from sort of migrating from animal to human, and you need to build up your immune system, clean your diet up, and so forth. So the trend has moved a little bit, and I really hope that at some point we can stop talking coronavirus and start moving back into what essentially is a much bigger topic of global warming and what we need to do for the future of the planet going forward.
How did you deal with the potential for COVID cases in your factories? Did you have many cases? How did you have to change your manufacturing operations?
Just like you would produce any other food product, you're doing it at very low temperatures. So you're standing in a cold, relatively humid environment and producing our products. I think we've been very fortunate that we haven't had any cases. We haven't had any interruptions at all. We obviously have a very good relationship with our factory in Nottingham, and they've just done a fantastic job. The supermarkets were suddenly asking for more and more of our products, which is, from a sales perspective, great. We were happy, but then immediately it's like, can we actually produce it? Because it's really bad to come into a supermarket and see empty shelves. So the factory got behind that and sort of had that, we can do this. And we're still running on that energy, I think, at the moment, because it is still very much the same situation, isn't it? All of the supermarkets are changing their strategies into, widening the category. As you might remember in the beginning, we were out there talking about there would be a protein aisle and it wouldn't be a meat aisle. And, there's just different varieties. Some proteins are animal-based, some are plant-based, some are cell-based, and so forth. Well, now some of those thoughts are starting to materialize.
With growing plant-based sales across all the retailers, a lot of people opposing this as a move towards veganism. But actually, when we look at sales of meat and animal protein over the last year have also risen by about the Kantar data we have, which is to 9th August, was about almost 500 million pounds more, or sorry, 400 million pounds more in sales of meat and animal protein. So this seems to paint a more complex picture. What does this tell you about British consumers' diets, that both plant-based and meat are growing in synchronicity like this?
People will cook what they know, and they will be willing to try something new, but they won't try something new 7 days a week. The growing meat consumption is not only in the UK, it's a global phenomenon. The meat companies are still growing, as you say, which is obviously the scary part, because we have to use more land, more animal feed, and more water and so forth in order to create this extra supply there is. So plant-based is still only probably 2% penetrated, whereas you see with the dairy products, plant-based dairy products, they've penetrated 15, 18% even in the milk category. So there's still a long way to go for plant-based meat. So there's still this drastic need for us to improve our products to a point where consumers will naturally pick them up and don't feel that they need to buy a meat product.
How do you grow that penetration?
Well, I think you do it via continuous innovation and a full MPD pipeline. What we're looking at is obviously growing our offering on shelves in supermarkets and improving those as well. So keep developing the core range. For example, our minced meat, we constantly try to make that a better product. We we have a whole food scientist team that are employed to do exactly that at the moment. And that's one of the positive things of all the momentum that the industry is having, that with increase in sales, and this, I think the realization that this is not a trend that just happened and then disappeared again. You know, we've been doing it for 4 or 5 years now, and the industry is growing. So more and more funding is coming in, and with funding, we can then start to develop, for example, our own factory, our own extrusion processes, our own detailed recipes. And, you know, there's a lot more a company like Meatless Farm can do because of the access to capital we have now. So, and that means at the end that the products will get cleaner, they will get better and healthier, but they will also be much closer to meat. You know, any branded product in the plant-based space of a certain size have right now the opportunity to attract investors and get money in, and don't waste that on silly things. Like, really use it targeted where it's making the products better. That's how we see it in this farm. And it's really, really important, because the real competition that we are seeing is not only from traditional meat, but also from cheaper plant-based, private label produced meat, that we run the risk that people try something that they buy because it's cheap and try a bad plant-based product, and then won't go back and retry with, for example, ours or some of our other quality competitors. You know, the cheapest price will never bring you the best product. It just won't, because it can't, you know, it's not sustainable for anyone, all the way down to the farmers. So we need to find a way where the products are of the best quality, and obviously at a price where it makes sense for everyone. And at the same time that the consumer is not pushed out because it's seen as some luxury product.
You know, I'd be interested to know, where you think plant-based can go that it has not gone yet.
On a very technical level, there are certain flavor profiles, there are certain data mining tools that are available to try nutritional peaks and so forth that we just didn't have a few years ago, that is now, I think, and it's not only Meatless Farm, it's everybody can access these things. You know, there's better natural colorants, natural binders, natural, you know, there's a lot of stuff that's coming in that's sort of driving, I think, health and sustainability in the supply chain. So those are the areas where I can see tremendous change from when we began.
And you forayed into D2C for the first time this year. That's correct, isn't it? Can you tell me about that? And, how big a part of the business do you see D2C becoming? What kind of potential do you think it has for brands such as yourself?
One of the areas that I see direct to consumer that's very interesting is the whole sort of revolution of dark kitchens and things that are popping up, where you can actually deliver fresh made food to customers, via dark kitchen in a branded version, stuff like that. I love the idea of that. I love the idea of getting plant-based food cooked by professionals out to people, because, without going into a restaurant, but getting it at home, because it's just so powerful. When you have a professional chef cooking Meatless Farm, regardless of how good I am or bad, actually, at cooking myself, it's just on a totally different level. And therefore, those dark kitchens I see as a great way to grow our business.
Morten, I think that answers all my questions. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Very good. Nice to be here. Thanks a lot.